Welcome to the second edition of Mission Minute News. I'm Dominican Sister Jean Harris. First, the headlines. Online school system a challenge. Vatican publishes book of Pope Francis' pandemic homilies. The death penalty. St. Junipero Serra, the great evangelizer of California. COVID-19 and the economy and faith. And prayer activism. And now the news in detail. Online school system a challenge. In March, Catholic schools in Los Angeles had about a day's notice to prepare for online learning. Catholic school teachers did an extraordinary job. Without skipping a beat, they delivered a top-notch education to our students in the most difficult of circumstances. The learning curve was steep, and it wasn't easy, but Catholic schools across the nation did what many of their public school counterparts weren't able to do. They continued to provide a high-quality education to students. Catholic school teachers don't see their work as a job. They see it as a vocation. That's the difference. They weren't going to let their students down. There are many challenges to opening school this year. The most significant is the uncertainty of whether or not we can return to campus anytime soon, based on Governor Newsom's latest orders. At the moment, unless we can get a waiver, and we are waiting to hear what the guidelines will be for that, we have to start the year in remote learning, said a teacher from one of the Catholic schools in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Online education is very difficult for elementary students, especially for students in grades kindergarten through second. This is because younger students really need more help from parents who may not have the time because they are working themselves. Additionally, there may be a digital divide between the haves and the have-nots. Many families are in short supply of digital devices, adequate internet bandwidth, supplemental equipment such as printers, computer cameras, etc. Online learning is just not developmentally appropriate for our youngest students. They need socialization with their peers, stated another teacher from the diocesan school. Another challenge for schools is the amount of money required to open safely. Even a small school with less than 200 students has to purchase plexiglass barriers for each student and teacher desk, touchless bathroom fixtures and water refilling stations, hand sanitizing stations, social distancing signage, classroom cameras for remote learning, and for return to campus, since there will be some students who opt to stay home or end up quarantined at various points throughout the year. Electrostatic, sanitizing equipment, COVID-19 related AC filters, thermometers, and on and on. One of the greatest challenges for teachers is just the anxiety that comes with not knowing how to prepare for the opening of school. If we return to school in person, teachers will plan one way. Remote learning requires a different type of preparation. At the moment, teachers are on a well-deserved break after the most challenging year of their careers. It is not fair to ask them to start lesson planning for multiple scenarios on their vacation time. We need definitive answers about returning to school. Parents can set up children for success for remote learning by designating an area for school away from as many distractions as possible. Students should have a desk, necessary electronic devices, including printer, school supplies, calendar, etc., as well as backup supplies. Many families are also forming pods. A pod is a sort of co-op solution to remote learning where families agree to follow quarantine guidelines in their micro group. Students in the same class, up to about 4 students, meet at a designated house with adult supervision and join online lessons together. This is a great solution because it reduces social isolation. Once students finish their remote learning for the day, they have a chance to socialize and participate in physical activities with their peers. In a recent press release, California Catholic bishops called on the governor to rapidly develop safe procedures to reopen schools. We understand that the threat of the coronavirus is real and ongoing in our state, and we understand that the legitimate concerns teachers, parents, and elected officials have about the safety of returning to the classrooms this fall. At the same time, we are deeply concerned about the broader health and development issues for our children if the state presumes to rely only on distance learning until a vaccine is developed. They point out the strengths of in-person learning, like emotional growth and social skills supports, and the negative impacts of virtual education. Many teachers in Catholic schools feel that this is our moment. If we can get that waiver from the state administration and open our elementary schools, we can show the rest of the nation that schools can open safely. They have the total confidence that their staffs are fully committed to putting student well-being first. As educators, we know that children need to be in school, one of them said. Someone needs to lead the way, and they think Catholic schools can do it best. Vatican publishes book of Pope Francis' pandemic homilies. A printed book which includes Pope Francis' homilies during the coronavirus lockdown in Italy has been published by the Vatican. Strong in the face of tribulation, the Church in communion, a sure support in time of trial, offers Pope Francis' homilies, prayers, and other messages delivered from March 9 to May 18, 2020, reports Catholic News Agency. It also includes resources for times when physical access to the sacraments is not possible, and other church blessings and prayers. A free PDF of the book was available on the Vatican website, but according to Vatican News, there were requests for a printed version. The paperback book is available for purchase on Amazon for $22.90. In the days of lockdown, the Pope would begin every Mass by offering a prayer intention related to the health crisis. Afterwards, he would lead those following the Mass from home in making an act of spiritual communion and allow around 10 extra minutes of silent adoration of the Eucharist. Millions of people around the world tuned in March 27 to a live televised prayer service Pope Francis held in an empty St. Peter's Square to pray for the world during the coronavirus pandemic. The service included a holy hour, an extraordinary Urbi et Orbi blessing, a reading from the Gospel, and a meditation by Francis, who spoke about faith and trust in God during a time when people fear for their lives, and he connected it with the Gospel incident of the disciples caught in a violent storm at sea. We have an anchor. By Christ's cross we have been saved. We have a rudder. By his cross we have been redeemed. We have a hope. By his cross we have been healed and embraced, so that nothing and no one can separate us from his redeeming love, the Pope said. The death penalty. Sister Helen Prejean, a sister of St. Joseph of Medeo, says, the death penalty is one of the great moral issues facing our country, yet most people rarely talk about it, and very few of us take the time to delve deeply enough into this issue to be able to make an informed decision about it. She also believes that it is against human dignity, not just about innocent life. In 1996, 78% of Americans supported the death penalty. 80% of Catholics did. In 2011, 59% of Catholics supported it. Helen is the famous author of the book Dead Man Walking, which later was made into a Hollywood movie based on a true story. Dignity of life demands that we never torture the person, but treat them with fairness, consistency, and morality. This issue has arisen again because Billy Joe Wardlow died recently by lethal injection in Texas. Records show that he was the 1,519th person to have been executed in the U.S. since 1976. So far this year, 6 death row inmates have been executed in the United States, 5 by lethal injection and 1 by electrocution. In addition, 7 more are scheduled for execution in the remaining months of 2020. 25 states, including Kansas, Indiana, Texas, and Virginia, still have the death penalty. 4 others, Colorado, Pennsylvania, California, and Oregon, have a governor-imposed moratorium suspending the practice until deemed worthy again. Proponents hold that these people deserve the punishment for the crimes they committed. Those who oppose the death penalty give many reasons for holding this view. More minorities receive this sentence than whites. Innocent people have been executed, proven by DNA or other subsequent information. Once in a while, the method doesn't work, adding to the torture. It has also been shown that executions cost more than life in prison without parole. Life without parole in a maximum security prison costs about $20,000 a year. Sometimes the prisoner's work helps cover that cost. The cost of capital punishment is much higher. Between 1977 and 1996, California spent $1 billion on the death penalty, but executed only 5 persons. In Texas, a capital case cost $2.3 million. Capital cases cost more all along the line. The appeals process adds to this cost as well. Saint Junipero Serra, the great evangelizer of California. The Catholic News Agency recently shared that Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles has refuted the portrayal of Saint Junipero Serra as racist. Gomez's comments came in the wake of numerous acts of vandalism and desecration against statues of the saint throughout California. Gomez made the remarks during a July 15 Mass celebrating Pope Francis' recent designation of the Mission San Buenaventura as the first basilica of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Auxiliary Bishop Robert Barron and Father Thomas Elewot were also present at the Mass. Archbishop Gomez said, "When the Pope designates a basilica, it means this is holy ground. Something beautiful and important in the history of salvation happened here. A basilica is a place where the mercy of God has been proclaimed in the name of Jesus Christ. It is a place where sinners have been saved and saints have been made, and the kingdom of God has moved forward." The great evangelizer of California, Saint Junipero Serra, was canonized September 23, 2015 by Pope Francis during the pontiff's first visit to the United States. According to the website California Catholic, Saint Junipero is seen as a symbol of heroic sacrifice and evangelization, a Franciscan friar and prominent figure in the European settlement of California. Saint Serra answered a call from God to leave a comfortable academic life in Spain, travel to the far edge of the Spanish Empire, and bring the Catholic faith to those who had never known it before. He traveled thousands of miles to Mexico and throughout California, founding 9 of California's 21 missions. These missions would later become the first settlements in many of California's major cities. When Father Serra died at the age of 70 in 1784, he was mourned by friars and many of the mission Indians, who referred to him for generations after his death as El Santo, the saint. Recognizing the greatness of Saint Junipero Serra and his impact both on the Church and on the state of California, Archbishop Gomez has announced that he is working on a publication to rebut the defamation of Saint Serra and his legacy. Both Bishop Gomez and Bishop Barron are committed to restoring Saint Serra's rightful place in history and to stopping the hateful attacks against El Santo, the great evangelizer of California. COVID-19 and the economy. Globalization had so much promise, with the world able to cradle economic success in its hands. However, there was something the world did not foresee: COVID-19, a worldwide pandemic, and the world was not prepared for it. All sectors of the world economy halted. Borders were closed, not because of the migrant crisis nor trade wars, but due to a pandemic that was hitting the whole world. Economists now agree that the West is already in deep recession. The excitement about medium-term opportunities brought by cheap energy, diversifying from China, or working remotely have become background noise. In the 1930s, it took 3 years for the economy to shrink by 1/3. In 2020, the speed of economic collapse is dizzying. We could face such shrinkage in a 3 to 6 month period. Before the pandemic, more than 35 million people in the U.S. worked in hard-hit sectors like restaurants, travel, and entertainment. The global travel and tourism market predicted a loss of more than 100 million jobs in 2020, with the Asia-Pacific region's share being approximately 63.4 million, and Europe, the second hardest hit, at 13 million jobs lost. In the third place, North America projects 8.2 million. On the housing sector, cities across the U.S. are bracing for a surge in evictions as the 4-month federal moratorium that protected the millions of tenants expired on July 25. Although, fortunately for many, it was extended by the CARES 2 Act. Huge banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Citibank have declared billions in loan loss provision in anticipation of payment defaults in credit card, mortgage, and personal and business loans. Retail establishments are also badly hit, with many seeking bankruptcy protections. The economic bleed is present in all sectors at all levels or categories of the world economy. Kathy Wild, head of Partnership for New York City, said, "Ironically, the more effective you are in reducing coronavirus exposure and slowing down the pace of the contagion, the longer it will take for it to be over. The economic damage is inversely proportional to the success in slowing the disease." Former Indian Central Bank Governor Raghuram Rajan warned that the economic hit from the pandemic will be here for a long time, even as markets cheered promising vaccine development news. Many ask, what do we do? Do we get back to work, even if it means more death? Should Americans break free of the shackles of quarantine to reboot the economy? While this might sound like a sound argument, it enjoys little support among economists. In a recent University of Chicago survey of dozens of prominent economists, almost all of them agreed that the economy would suffer if the U.S. abandoned severe lockdowns while the infection rate remained high. It is true that severe lockdowns produce a parallel human misery: millions of unemployed Americans, thousands of looming bankruptcies, and extreme financial anguish. But as a Catholic media ministry, Wordnet believes that we, the children of the Most High, look to God to help us navigate the hardships of a pandemic that is beyond any human understanding. And so we pray, in God we trust. Prayer activism. At an initial call to action by one of the Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose, a small group of the congregation's members gathered online in recent weeks to reflect on systemic racism in the U.S. Several Zoom meetings yielded a lot of learning from the sharing of articles and videos addressing related aspects of the issue, and especially from the sharing of personal reflection. I've really learned a lot, prompted by the initiative and support of my sisters' actual or vicarious experiences of racism, said one sister. As the group dug deeper into understanding the struggle between white privilege and universal equality, they began to coalesce around the fact that prayer and the wisdom of God for the November election comprise perhaps the most imminently needed activism at this time, for two reasons. Leadership is fundamentally important for change to actually happen in societal struggles, and second, voter preparation and participation is essential to put the best leaders into office. After discussion of content and phrasing, a special prayer text was created by the group, along with a promise to join in recitation daily. These discussions and efforts have great significance in the wake of rising racism and riots in the country. Much of the rhetoric has only added fuel to flames rather than putting them out. What we need is not a militant racist activism, but a tolerant acceptance of everyone as children of the same God. Coronavirus deaths. We have heard stories of the virus claiming the lives of a couple, 3 to 5 members of one family, several in the same nursing home. But the death of 13 sisters in one convent is hard to believe. Yet, according to a CNN report, coronavirus spread so quickly through a convent in Michigan that it claimed the lives of 12 sisters in 1 month, beginning on Good Friday, April 10. They were all members of the Felician Sisters Convent in the city of Livonia, outside of Detroit, ranging in ages from 69 to 99. Executive Director for Mission Advancement, Susan English, confirmed. A 13th sister initially survived the virus, but passed away from its effects in June. The women were long-time members of the order and leave behind a legacy of service, according to their obituaries. They all served others through different roles, from teaching to helping at-risk children, to playing music, to publishing a 586-page book about the history of the convent. And one sister won a commercial script writing contest for Campbell's Soup with her 2nd grade class. Another was assigned to the Felician Generalate in Rome twice and worked as secretary in the English section of the Vatican Secretariat of State. We grieve for each of our sisters who has passed during the time of the pandemic throughout the province, and we greatly appreciate all of those who are holding us in prayer and supporting us in a number of ways, said Sister Mary Christopher Moore, Provincial Minister of Our Lady of Hope Province. Only 10 people could attend each funeral. The women all lived and worked on the 360-acre campus that was once home to 800 sisters, according to the Global Sisters Report, an independent, nonprofit Catholic news publisher. The Global Sisters Report said the death of the 13 sisters in Livonia may be the worst loss of life to a community of religious women in the U.S. since the 1918 influenza pandemic. In total, at least 30 sisters in Livonia were infected with the virus, and 17 recovered. English said, citing Sister Noel Marie Gabriel, Director of Clinical Health Services for Our Lady of Hope Province, from other sources, we know that COVID-19 has claimed the lives of pastors, firefighters, police, nurses, doctors, those in nursing homes, and many, many others. As one person said, this disease is no respecter of persons. It hits everywhere. Obviously, some places more than others. We envision a world without slavery. In our last edition of Mission Minute News, we reported on human trafficking during the COVID-19 situation. Continuing that story, we are happy to inform you that U.S. Catholic Sisters Against Human Trafficking envision a world without slavery and a network of services and resources to inform the public, prevent the crime, and assist survivors to achieve a fulfilling life. 40 million is the estimated number of those trafficked, victims of both labor and sexual trafficking. This group of Sisters Against Trafficking help 100 survivors each year through local shelters and outreach programs. At the beginning of the pandemic, traffickers were unable to sell their people, so they just dropped them off on a street corner somewhere to fend for themselves. In those places where things began to open up, they scurried to begin the trafficking once more. Victims are less visible and more vulnerable in the time of this pandemic. Among the many purposes of trafficking are forced labor, child soldiers, forced begging, sexual exploitation, virtual exploitation, forced marriage, selling children, and removal of organs. 1 in 3 victims is a child. 90% of victims of trafficking for sexual exploitation are women and girls. You can always help someone whom you think is a victim of trafficking by calling the hotline 1-888-37-37-888. The shared parish. The shared parish, Latinos, Anglos, and the Future of U.S. Catholicism, that's the title of a 2014 study by Dr. Brett Hoover, theology professor of Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. A number of shared parishes have arisen around the world in recent decades. In the U.S., large immigrant groups from various Latino countries have been merging with aging white or black congregations, resulting in a variety of challenges. But Dr. Hoover contends that this presents a perfect opportunity for the parish to realize and express its universal identity. In other words, its true Catholicity. He suggests that the struggle may be a natural outcome of the well-intentioned and perhaps too well-achieved goal of Vatican II, which emphasized the uniqueness of cultures and encouraged vernacular expressions in worship, as opposed to purely uniform ritual. But Dr. Hoover also sees that a strong reason for power imbalances may simply be the outgrowth of societal discrepancies, and concludes that the role of the pastor thus becomes strategically significant. In his August 2020 interview for Claretian Publications U.S. Catholic, Dr. Hoover explains, I think ideally the pastor has a vision of how the parish works and keeps people accountable to that vision, maintaining an egalitarian atmosphere in the parish and making sure that everyone has access to what they need and no group feels like they are more the owner than another group. He offers a few practical applications of parish sharing to encourage tolerance, but also admits that this is but the first step toward the vision of our Lord in Matthew 17, verse 21, that all may be one, along with our differences. COVID-19 claims Pakistan's mother of the forgotten. Sister Ruth Lewis, who dedicated her life to children with mental and physical disabilities, died in Karachi from COVID-19 at the age of 77. Known across Pakistan as the Mother of the Forgotten, Sister Ruth spent her life caring for children with disabilities in the port city of Karachi. She was a member of the Franciscan Missionaries of Christ, the King, and helped to found the Dar al-Sukun boarding house of peace, home for people with mental and physical disabilities in February 1969. For over 51 years, Sister Ruth was a mother to children who had been abandoned by their families. According to news reports, she contracted the disease on July 8 and was taken to Aga Khan Hospital, where she was placed on a ventilator. Then, on July 20, Sister Ruth breathed her last. The Dar al-Sukun home, which the sister had directed since 2000, expressed their sadness in a Facebook post which said, "All our children, nuns, and staff are heartbroken, as we have lost a huge part of us. Please pray for the children to whom she has been a mother, for the nuns for whom she was a sister and a true inspiration, and for all the staff who loved her and will each day try to walk in her footsteps." Sister Ruth's services to humanity were truly remarkable. She was an icon of love, care, and true compassion, said one of the benefactors. The governor of Sindh province called her a true inspiration. Karachi will always remember her selfless service for differently abled and socially displaced children and elderly, said Governor Imran Ismail. International Virtual Choir sings Salve Regina, inviting others to meet God through song. New Evangelization Television reports the release of the online version of Salve Regina by Chilean foundation Canto Católico. The hymn was sung by 450 choir members from 33 countries. We wanted to invite everyone who wished to unite their voices with heaven and entrust themselves to the Blessed Virgin, said Canto Católico singer Francisco Val Jimenez. So we chose this song. The song's lyrics have been attributed to Bernardo de Claraval, but the melody was composed in the 13th century. Canto Católico did not want to just make a beautiful video. They wanted to transmit a profound message in response to the current pain and fear of hundreds of thousands of people around the world. The idea of producing this melody was inspired by the Holy Father's special Urbi et Orbi speech delivered on March 27. Pope Francis gave his extraordinary blessing, Urbi et Orbi, to the city and to the world in an empty St. Peter's Square at the Vatican during the Holy Hour. The blessing was live-streamed because of the coronavirus pandemic. In addition to songs like this, the Canto Católico Foundation has materials on the role of music in the Church on its website and on its YouTube channel. Their idea is to help people meet God through singing in church or on social media. The Vatican issues guidelines for parishes in the Pope Francis era. On June 20th, the Vatican issued a new instruction on the renewal of parish life, urging parish communities to abandon outdated models and to embrace what Pope Francis has styled as a spirit of missionary evangelization. Among other things, the guidelines caution priests not to commercialize the sacraments by charging fees. And they stipulate that financial difficulties within a diocese are not a legitimate reason for closing down parishes. Titled, "The Pastoral Conversion of the Parish Community in the Service of the Evangelizing Mission of the Church," the new guidelines were issued as an instruction, meaning they are a set of non-binding suggestions for the renewal of parish life. According to the introduction, the new guidelines represent a valuable opportunity for pastoral conversion that is essentially missionary. Referring to the modern context of parish life, the instruction notes that, like many other areas of society, the digital world is changing the dynamics of parish life, which is no longer attached to its geographic location, but has increasingly reflected the dynamic of a community by adoption, where a person feels welcomed and nourished, but did not necessarily grow up there, or which is not in their immediate area. Since parishes are no longer the main gathering places or social centers for local communities, it is necessary to find new forms of accompaniment and closeness, the instruction said, insisting that communities should not be afraid to begin and accompany processes within territories that are host to diverse cultures. It underlined the need to avoid the clericalization of pastoral activity by allowing lay people to be protagonists of evangelization through different ministries in the parish. Stressing the role of parishes in caring for the poor and in leading people to a free encounter with Jesus Christ, the instruction said there is a need, then, not to commercialize the sacramental life, and not to give the impression that the celebration of the sacraments, especially the Holy Eucharist, are subject to tariffs. Eucharist moves out of the church. With the rise of coronavirus cases and recent lockdown of all the public worship places, parish Eucharists have been moved from the church to open-air celebrations. When coronavirus cases began to increase, California's governor ordered a second closure of all the public places, including churches. This order prohibits indoor gatherings, so the dioceses have decided to celebrate Eucharist and other services and events either in parking lots, under temporary tents, or other open areas. This provides a much-needed opportunity for the people to gather safely in worship, participate in Eucharist, and receive Holy Communion. Guidelines for social distancing and face coverings are carefully observed. News from the SVD. On August 1st, 5 men officially joined the Society of the Divine Word by professing religious vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience after the completion of a year-long novitiate, a year of prayer, reflection, and learning more about the religious order. The ceremony was held in the Chapel of the Divine Word residence at Techny, Illinois. Due to the restrictions on visitors and travel, attendance was limited to members of the Techny community. In the coming days, all 5 men will move to Divine Word Theologate and begin coursework at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. The men are Ryan Agbing, born in Newark, New Jersey, Mark Declama from Haiti, David Kojo Imon from Togo, and Joseph Huy Nguyen and Tong Din Tran from Vietnam. Under the guidance of Novice Director Timothy Lenchak and Associate Director Matthew Zemel, they professed first vows before Quang Duc Dinh, Provincial of Chicago Province of the Society of the Divine Word, and Walter Miller, Rector of Techny Residence, Chicago. In another simple ceremony at the Divine Word Residence Chapel, 6 new novices began their year-long novitiate training, having successfully completed studies at Divine Word College in Epworth, Iowa. They are Joubert Felice, Visvel Joseph, Michelet Boncoeur, Tu Nguyen, Samuel Loyar, and Baruch Zinsu. 5 other members have received their first assignments from Father Superior General at the Generalate in Rome. After completing their training for priesthood and professing perpetual vows in October, they will be ordained in May 2021. They are Ido Adolfanato, assigned to Brazil, Amazon Province, Min An Din and Akisu Gerard Kamina to Chicago Province, Hai Ngoc Pham to U.S. Southern Province, and Francisco Santoso to U.S. Western Province. Akil Thomas, assigned to U.S. Western Province, was ordained recently after multiple postponements due to coronavirus situation. Akil is from Kerala, India. He completed his theological studies and other priestly formation under the Society of the Divine Word in India and will arrive in the U.S. Western Province upon receiving his religious worker visa. Response to global warming. Professor V. Ramanathan, prominent eco-scientist at the University of California, San Diego, and advisor to Pope Francis, has offered a 10-point response to the problem of global warming, which was recently presented to Congress. First, develop a rapid response plan to deal with weather and climate extremes, with very special attention to the spread of waterborne and vector-borne diseases, and to the mental health impacts of losing loved ones and property. 2, develop a rapid response plan for rural farmers in case of widespread droughts, particularly in Midwest, Southwest, and West Coast states. 3, develop a rapid response plan to retrain the 1.1 million workers in the fossil fuels extraction industry. They can then join the 3 million Americans working in technologies related to low-carbon energy sources and energy efficiency and speed the transition to cleaner sources of energy. 4, create a bill to ban dumping food into landfills and instead convert the wasted food into biofuels. We throw about 40% of the processed food into landfills. In addition, recover methane from water treatment plants and farm manure. 5, create a bill to avoid fugitive methane emissions during the production and distribution of natural gas. This bill, along with Solution 4, will reduce the warming from methane, the second largest global warming source. 6, create a bill to ensure all diesel vehicles are fitted with particulate filters to eliminate emissions of black carbon, the third largest source of warming. 7, create market incentives to replace refrigerants, HFCs, by 2030 in air conditioners and other cooling equipment with climate-neutral refrigerants, while also doubling their energy efficiencies. Solutions numbers 4 through 7, if adopted globally, will cut the rate of warming by half before 2050. 8, create a public-private partnership to speed the development of scalable technologies that can remove annually 5 billion tons of carbon dioxide from the air beginning in 2030. 9. Back in your states and districts, bring together people working in science, policy, and religion into new alliances. Many religious leaders are already deeply concerned about the harm being caused to God's creation. Such alliances will help assuage the suffering that climate impacts will cause people. These alliances can provide a forum to reach out to the public directly. And finally, number 10, promote mass-scale climate education of kindergarten to college-level students and the general public. The University of California, along with the California State University system, has already created a climate solutions course with the sole purpose of educating 1 million to bend the curve. That's all for this edition of Mission Minute News. Until we meet again in our next edition, stay safe, and may Jesus' love for you make you smile.